Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Nice to see everyone. Okay, we're going to start learning a little bit. We haven't seen you in a couple of days.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, good morning.
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 I like your, Eddie, I like your background there.
Okay, better we close the door. Thank you, Rabbi.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. I'm just going to... There we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to start. We're continuing in our Kabbalistic analysis of the daily prayers, especially the prayer of the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei. Last week we had a very interesting class about justice, the week before about freedom. The last few weeks we've been speaking about the general requests, communal requests of the Jewish people. So before that we discussed the personal requests for health, for wealth, for all the other things we ask for in our daily prayers. And today we're continuing on the communal requests. So we had the request for freedom, the importance of freedom. We had about justice, tzedek, mishpat. And today the Midah goes off in what you might call a bit of a rant. It goes off a little bit in a section there that almost seems incongruous with everything else that's in the Amidah. Everything else is asking for beautiful, noble things like freedom and justice. And next week we speak about righteousness, and then we speak about redemption, Mashiach. Great requests that the world should be a world of peace, sim shalom. But there is one prayer, the 13th prayer of the Amidah, which is, there are 13 requests. So the 13th request is the bracha of Olam al Shinim. It's a prayer that seems, like I say, to be a little bit incongruous with the gist of the rest of the Amidah. Everything is about love and liberty and justice for all. And suddenly in the middle over here, we have a bracha that asks for, the blessing goes something like this: V'alam al shinim al ti tikva. For the informers, there should be no hope. V'chol haminim, and all the heretics. V'chol hazeidim, and all the evil people. Chol haminim, chol hazeidim, meheri yavedu, they should be quickly destroyed. And the evil empire should be destroyed, Psa'ake should be uprooted, Usmager, and broken, was shaber and crushed. B'mheira v'yameinu, swiftly in our days, Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you God, Shoiver Oivim, the one that destroys, he breaks the enemies, Umachnia Zaydim, and he subdues the wicked ones. So if you read that prayer, it's a little bit like a heavy prayer in the middle of a beautiful Amidah. We're asking nice things. Suddenly we come up and we speak about all the bad people in this world and all the evil. May God destroy them and uproot them and break them to pieces. Like I say, it's sort of incongruous. It's a prayer that's counter to everything else we're talking about. We're talking about a beautiful, loving God. And that's another question. Is Judaism a religion of love? Is our religion basically about loving each other? Love your fellow like yourself? So how does a prayer like this end up in the Amidah? We're asking God for the destruction of evil? But here comes some important points. But first, I want to tell you historically how this prayer came about. Actually, the Amidah is called the Shmona Esrei, 18 prayers. There was a 19th prayer that was added later on. So let's say the Amidah was written around 2,600 years ago, approximately. And there was 18 prayers that was made. A few hundred years later, which is after already the destruction of the Second Temple, maybe in the year 100 after the Common Era. So it's already like, I don't know, maybe 500-600 years after the initial Amidah was made. This prayer, V'la Malshinim, the 19th blessing, was added into the prayers. And how did it come about? It came about at a time right after the destruction of the Second Temple. And we know that amongst the Jews, there were many groups that were sort of developing within the Jewish community, breakaways almost, if you can call it that, from the traditional Judaism. That was the advent, the founding of Christianity actually was founded by a bunch of Jews also at that time. So there were many breakaway groups, and that's the groups that they call minim, the minim. The minim were those that were trying to break away from traditional Judaism and were trying to bring new ideas. And as we know that many of those groups also aligned themselves with the Romans and with others, and they became a great danger to the purity and authenticity and the continuity of the Jewish faith. These were idolatrous groups too. Idolatrous. Christianity, as we know, was a form of idolatry. Believing in a human being being a god and all of that. So that was considered very much a danger to the Jewish people at the time. So the rabbis at that time, Rabbi Gamliel, he asked that the rabbis should find an appropriate blessing. They weren't going to go and shoot anyone or kill anyone or anything like that, but a blessing that God should solve this problem. And Hashem should remove all these breakaways, all these groups that were threatening the Jews spiritually and physically. And that's actually the origin of the section called V'la Malshinim. V'la Malshinim is the informers. Those were the informers that were informing the Jews onto the Roman Empire. And also the minim or these breakaway Jewish groups at the time. And they made this blessing, which had a historical context, but it was inserted in the Amidah, so it should be able to be a blessing that even after these people go away, there still should be a need for it. And the gist of the blessing was that all those that inform against the Jews, all the anti-Semites, and all the people that are plotting against us, they should be destroyed. They should be crushed, or they should be removed and moved away. So that's what that 19th blessing in the Amidah is all about. We find in the davening in general, in the prayers in general, there are numerous prayers that speak about the need to eradicate all the idolatrous groups, idolatrous religions that were threatening the monotheistic basis of Judaism. One of the very famous prayers along those lines is a prayer that we say every day, a few times a day. Everybody gets excited when we get to that prayer because it's the last prayer. It means the service is over. It's the prayer of Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach. We sing it always. Aleinu l'shabeach Adon HaKol. Right. So over there in Aleinu, we speak about we should be thankful to God that we have this one God, that we bow down to Him, unlike the other nations that bow down to rocks and stones and they worship nothingness, which are, insignificant. And so over there, there's also a section over there that, in fact, many of the prayers over the years were very, very controversial, and as a result of those the controversy of the prayers, they were censored by the outside governments and also by the Jews themselves, so not to arouse anti-Semitism. And in the Aleinu, we find such a prayer where it says over there that one of the famous debates in the times of the Spanish Inquisition, and thereafter in the time of Nachmanides, they pointed to Aleinu as Aleinu, that the Jews were constantly speaking against Christianity and against the other religions. And one could read up on it and see the historical context of a lot of the prayers, and they changed actually some of the prayers where it says that they bowed down to vanity and nothingness. They took out those words, and in many Sidurim they reinstated it. But we find that the censor had. But I don't want to go so much into the historical context of this prayer, which I already gave you a little bit of the background of this particular blessing, V'la Malshinim, for the informers. But I want to talk a little bit about more about, is Judaism a religion of love, or is there a little bit of anger and hate and other aspects in it too? If you give a look in the book of Psalms, you see that King David, many times he speaks about loving God, but many times also he says, Oyavei Hashem, the lovers of God, sinura, they hate evil. So he uses a strong term that if you love God, you have to hate evil. So what does that mean? Again, seems like pretty radical hate. In some other religions, actually, in religions like Christianity, they say if somebody hits you on the one cheek, you give them the other cheek, right? That's a very common thing, right? No hate, only love. The Jewish Bible is very, very different. There's a lot about hating those that hate God or those that hate the Jewish people. There's a lot about revenge, vengeance, revenge that's brought there. And I want to tell you something, just to understand this a little bit, is that, if you have, sometimes people don't understand, what does it mean that you hate someone that hates your God? How does that work? The lovers of God hate evil. So what does it mean to hate evil? But I always compare it to, like, your children, right? If a bully starts up with your child in the schoolyard, what do? What's your reaction when the bully starts up with your child? Is your reaction, okay, everything's fine, it'll be good, and go ahead? Or, no, I love my child. If you really love your child, you hate anyone that hurts them or threatens them. That is an instinctive thing. Because, love and hate, they go hand in hand, one with the other. I'm not saying hating the person as a person, but hating those forces that threaten good is part of loving good. You can't be passionate about something without feeling bad about those things that are trying to take away those good things. Now, some people say, like, a lot of people in Canada say, you just got to be like, very, just take it easy, everything's fine, No. You have to, sometimes you need to be passionately, have to have passionate emotions about things that you love. I think it was Simon and Garfunkel once said, if I never would have loved, I never would have cried. So you can choose not to love, and then you never get hurt. Some people say that I'm a rock, I am an island. An island never cries. Well, Rock never cries. You can be that if you want to in life. But if you love things, if you really care about things, you become passionate in both directions. You can't not hate Nazism. You can't say, well, I just love good. But I'm not angry about murder or theft. That just doesn't work that way. Of course, there are many ways to take revenge. The Jewish revenge is a different kind of revenge, but still you have to be passionate about these things. Many of the Jewish people today is Israel Yom Ha'atzmaut, today, and that was the Jewish revenge. Okay, we didn't go and blow up Germany. We built a country that is the envy of the world today. That's our revenge. We went afterwards with all the baggage that we had and all the anger that we had of how the world kept quiet when 6 million Jews were murdered, and about how some nations actually perpetrated those crimes. And today we've built a beautiful country with a beautiful society. It's a light unto the nations. That's our revenge. Okay, so we take revenge in funny ways. We take it in positive ways. Okay, we don't go punching out people afterwards. That's not. Told you he came in the chief rabbi of Israel, former chief rabbi, Rabbi Lau, Yisrael Meir Lau. So he was like the youngest survivor of Buchenwald, of maybe the youngest survivor of the Holocaust. He was 7 or 8 years old, and he survived the Holocaust because his brother, his 18-year-old brother, kept him in a sack the whole time, in a bag or whatever. He kept him secretively, and he survived. He survived Buchenwald, 7 years old. So the Nazis robbed him of his childhood. All he could remember as a little kid is having to survive, barely survive. And finally, he made it to Israel. And he became the chief rabbi, first the rabbi of Tel Aviv, and then he became the chief rabbi of Israel. And then after he was the chief rabbi of Israel, he went back to Buchenwald. And it was an interesting thing, the youngest survivor of the Holocaust coming to Buchenwald. He went there, and he went into one of the torture rooms of the Nazis, where they would torture people. And he gave a look on the windowsill, and he saw etched in the windowsill in Hebrew letters the word nekama, nekuma, he says in Yiddish. Nekuma means revenge. So one of the people in Buchenwald must have been there, and he wrote, he etched it in the windowsill. So Rabbi Lau says he's looking at the word nekuma there. He says, what's the nekuma? What's the revenge? He thought to himself afterwards, if somebody gave me a gun and gave me the Nazi that shot my mother to death, would I be able to pull the trigger? He says, I don't think so. Someone gave me the Nazi that shoved my father into the gas chamber, or the Ukrainian guard that was there, gave him to me and gave me a pistol and said, shoot him. I said, would I be able to shoot him? He says, I don't think so. So what's the nekuma? What's the revenge? See, the Jews speak about revenge in the Amidah. Destroy the evil empire. He says, what's the nekuma? He says, I was thinking about what's the nekuma. The nekuma was my family. 37 generations of rabbis. They murdered my father and my mother. Also, my father was the rabbi of the town Petrikov. For 37 generations, you are rabbis in my family. And I came to Israel, didn't know what to do. And I decided there and then, I'll be a rabbi like my father. And I became the chief rabbi of Israel. He says, that's the Nakuma. That's the revenge. He says, my sons, they're all rabbis. And now his son right now actually is Rabbi David Lau, is the current Ashkenazic chief rabbi of Israel. That's the Nakuma. Right? So Jews, we take revenge in interesting ways. But nonetheless, it's a passionate thing that we want to, we want to not to give Hitler a posthumous victory. And the way we give, we don't hand him a posthumous victory. We are the winners at the end. We are the true victors. How is that? By becoming chief rabbis ourselves, by becoming Nobel Prize winners. That's how Jews take revenge. Right? Yeah. In the Torah, when it speaks about Phineas. It says Pinchas was someone who took revenge for God. He took the vengeance of God in his hands. But when it mentions who Pinchas was, it says he was Pinchas ben Aaron HaKohen. He was the son of Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen was the high priest, Basil. You know who the Aaron HaKohen is? The priest of the Jewish people. But Aaron HaKohen, the Kohen Gadol, what was he known for? He was known for his love. So even among the Jews, when we have Pinchas was known to be a person who took vengeance for God. But at the same time, he was imbued with the spirit of Aaron HaKohen. So when we have Valam al-Shinim, when we have when we speak about breaking down the evil empire, this is the way the Jews do it, how we do it, how we destroy evil. But the first thing is we need to be passionate about it. We need to feel that we want to rid the world of evil. One of the big mitzvahs is to destroy the Amalekites. Right? That's what Judaism is about. It's about cleansing the world and breaking all the evil forces in this world. That's our job. Those that threaten our existence. Jewish people have an incredible way of doing things to ensure our survival and to break the evil empire. You know, one of the evil empires right now is a nation in the Middle East that threatens Israel's very survival, and they're very clear about it. So what does Israel do? They don't go and destroy people. They find a way to blow up the nuclear plant 600 feet and 600 underground to get the whole electrical thing and implode the place. that they themselves are saying it's a beautiful thing. They've never seen such a thing in their life. It's our Jews. We plan and we plot to destroy the evil empire without shedding blood if possible, obviously. So if you look in the wording of this blessing, in the Kabbalah, it speaks about the evil forces. It calls it Sitra Achra. In the Kabbalah, it speaks about that Hashem created the potential for evil in this world, and it's called the other side. In other places, it's described as the Klippa, because God wanted to give us free choice, so that's why He created the potential for evil. in order that good should succeed in this world, it needs to beat the evil. What is evil? Evil is klipa. It's like a shell. It's like on a fruit or on a nut. You have a shell that covers the fruit that doesn't allow you to see it. The same way as God's presence in this world is blocked out by what's known as the three blockages, klipot, shells. And Kabbalah speaks about a fourth level, which is the translucent shell. That's almost like a membrane that's on the fruit. You know, you have the hard cover shells that doesn't allow you to see the fruit. And then you have the one on top of the orange that allows you that you can see it. It's a little translucent. That means it's a shell, but it's one that could be elevated. It can even be eaten. It's edible, right? So that's why if you give a look in the language of this blessing, it says, you should uproot, you should break, and you shall crush. So those are three expressions that are used to describe the evil of this world, that there's certain kind of evil that there's no way of elevating, that you just need to break it. But then the fourth expression that's used is subdue. Subdue is for the fourth level of the klipa, which is the level which we said is the translucent shell that can be elevated to. So in this world, there are three levels of evil which can't be elevated. Total blockage. In fact, when you see the visions of Isaiah and others, you see how the prophets speak about they had three obstacles before they were able. The same thing is in the book of Ezekiel also. There's like three obstacles that are there. There's a storm. There's different things that don't allow the prophet to get wherever they have to get. And then there is the translucent, the noga, which is a fourth level, which once you reach closer to Hashem, there is the translucent light which surrounds God, which that can be elevated. So in this world, there is straightforward evil, which we don't want to have anything to do with, which we need to destroy. But there is a fourth level of evil which can be actually elevated. So that is the level of Aker, Shabbos, Mager, Sachniya. Because in the physical world, there are many things that block us out from the presence of God. But there are many things in the world that are not evil per se. They just block out God. But if we deal with them properly, we have the ability to elevate them and to bring them much higher. Okay, does anybody have any questions on today's class? I'm sorry, I have something that came up that I need to go to right now. So if anybody has any questions, we're going to end a little bit earlier today. Anybody? Do you have any questions? You can unmute yourself if you want to ask something.
Rabbi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to all.
Carry on, Rabbi. We're enjoying it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
See all.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Always.
Shukri Shabbos.
Okay, good job. Thank you. Bye-bye.